You look around and wonder how it happened, how people with half your intelligence, half your discipline, half your decency are getting rich. You watch them rise, loud and confident, while you stay still, quietly competent, wondering what invisible rule book they're playing from. They bend the world, you follow it. They manipulate perception, you rely on merit, and Machiavelli would whisper to you through centuries of human deceit, it's not about who's smartest, it's about who understands power. You were raised to believe in fairness, in effort, honesty, and talent, but the economy you live in is not a meritocracy, it's a stage. And money, like power, doesn't flow to the deserving, it flows to the strategic. You see, intelligence impresses, but perception sells. And while you're busy being good, others are busy being seen. You felt it before. That slow, suffocating frustration that comes from watching someone incompetent hold authority. That manager who doesn't know half of what you know. That influencer who sells nonsense, but sells it beautifully. That entrepreneur who fails 3 times, lies once, and somehow walks away with investors and applause. You look at them and ask, how? Machiavelli answered 500 years ago, men in general judge more by the eyes than by the hands. The world doesn't reward truth, it rewards the illusion of truth. You think your intelligence is your weapon. But intelligence without strategy is like a blade without a handle, sharp but unusable. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He saw that people don't want competence, they want confidence. They don't want reality, they want theatre. And in that theatre, those who master appearances control those who master substance. The painful truth is this: the marketplace is psychological, not logical. You don't get rich by being right, you get rich by being perceived as valuable. Those dumber people you resent, they've simply accepted the game. They know that wealth is not a reflection of intelligence, it's a reflection of influence. They don't chase perfection, they chase perception. They don't wait to be validated, they manufacture validation. And that's where you lose. Because you wait. You hesitate. You overthink. You tell yourself you're not ready. You convince yourself that honesty means exposure, that strategy means manipulation, that patience means virtue. Meanwhile, they're out there, selling, connecting, exaggerating, building myth while you build skill. And Machiavelli would tell you, the myth always wins first. You have to understand something brutal about wealth. It's not just an economic system, it's a psychological hierarchy. At the top are the storytellers, those who control what others believe. Below them are the executors, the ones who do the work but don't control the narrative. And at the bottom are the moralists, those who believe the game shouldn't exist at all, and therefore never win it. You probably fall somewhere between the second and the third. You think that playing clean guarantees respect, but Machiavelli knew better. He wrote that men must learn how not to be good, not because evil is admirable, but because purity is predictable. Goodness without cunning becomes a target. The world doesn't crush the wicked, it crushes the naive. And so, you sit in meetings watching mediocrity ascend while your voice goes unheard. You build skills that others exploit. You stay silent to keep the peace, while others speak nonsense and walk away with promotion, credit, applause. And deep down, you start to feel it. That burning, quiet resentment that whispers, maybe they know something I don't. They do. They understand optics. They understand that wealth is a story, and stories are sold, not proven. You sell a dream, not a fact. You sell an image, not a resume. You sell momentum, not perfection. And those who appear certain attract followers, investors, believers, while those who appear conflicted, even if they're right, repel them. It's not about being fake. It's about being composed. Machiavelli said a ruler must appear virtuous, even if he must act otherwise, because people don't see intentions, they see outcomes. They don't ask, is he moral? They ask, is he winning? And once you're winning, morality becomes flexible in their eyes. Success purifies the sinner. Think of the faces that dominate headlines, social feeds, and stages. Many of them lack depth, but they have rhythm. They've learned to engineer desire to make people want to believe them. They know the art of silence, timing, framing. They leak success in controlled doses. They reveal just enough to make others curious, never enough to make them equal. And that curiosity is gold, because curiosity sustains relevance, and relevance sustains wealth. Meanwhile, you tell your full truth, thinking honesty will attract loyalty. But total honesty breeds exposure, and exposure invites dissection. They will study your flaws until they forget your brilliance. They will pull you down not because you failed, but because you showed too much of what it means to be human. The ones getting rich have detached from the need to be liked. You, however, still want to be understood. You still want your success to be deserved. They only want it to be seen. This is the core Machiavellian divide. The intelligent strive for truth. The cunning strive for control. And in this world, control pays better. So how do you cross that divide? You don't become corrupt. You become strategic. You stop mistaking humility for invisibility. You stop confusing kindness with compliance. You start understanding that image is a tool, not a lie. You learn to weaponize perception without losing integrity. Because Machiavelli never told rulers to be evil. He told them to be effective. He said a prince must learn how not to be good, meaning he must learn when goodness becomes weakness, when mercy invites attack, when transparency becomes self-sabotage. You must do the same. Let's be honest, the people getting rich around you aren't smarter. They're shamelessly visible. They network with intent. They flatter power. They bend narratives until they fit their ambition. They understand that every human craves confidence more than truth. They project certainty even when they're improvising. And people, desperate for direction, follow them. Not because they're right, but because they're certain. You've probably been taught that confidence comes from competence. It doesn't. Confidence creates competence. And Machiavelli knew that perception precedes power. Act capable, and people will treat you as capable. Act valuable, and they will pay for your value. Even if it doesn't exist yet, you can keep telling yourself that hard work speaks for itself. But the world is deaf. Work whispers. Image screams. And until you understand that, you'll stay invisible. The rich are not necessarily the best, they're the boldest. They understand risk as theater. They fail publicly, but recover strategically, because failure, when framed correctly, becomes myth. While you hide your mistakes, they monetize theirs. So how do you start thinking like them without becoming them? You start by detaching morality from visibility. You stop seeking purity in a world that rewards power. You begin to see yourself as both the creator and the product. You craft your presence intentionally. Your silence becomes part of your strategy. Your words become currency, spent only when return is guaranteed. If someone asks, "What are you working on?" answer with mystery, not detail. Let imagination fill the gaps. If someone challenges your competence, don't defend, demonstrate. If someone disrespects you, don't argue, disappear. Because Machiavelli's power didn't come from aggression, it came from control of reaction. Your reaction is your real weakness. Every time you respond emotionally, you confirm your position as follower, not ruler. The wealthy understand this. Power is patience disguised as confidence. The one who can stay still while others panic wins, because composure is the ultimate currency in chaos. You've spent years mastering skills. Now you must master signals. The way you walk into a room, the pace of your speech, the silence between your words, the absence of explanation. These are the modern equivalents of royal posture, the invisible armor that Machiavelli demanded from every leader. Because in a world of noise, stillness is power. He warned princes to control appearances, to seem merciful, faithful, humane, but only when it served purpose. You too must learn when authenticity empowers you and when it weakens you. Don't lie but don't expose. Don't show all your cards, but make them believe you hold the ace. This is not deception, it's survival. The people dumber than you aren't smarter, they're simply less attached to appearing honest. They treat reputation like clay, molding it as needed. You treat it like glass, fragile, sacred, untouchable, and that rigidity keeps you broke. Flexibility is power, adaptation is intelligence in motion, and in a world where everyone's selling something, you must learn to sell yourself without selling your soul. You must understand one final Machiavellian truth. The world is not designed for the sincere, it is designed for the strategic. The sincere wait to be chosen, the strategic create the illusion of being chosen already, and the crowd always follows the one who seems chosen. In the next part, we'll go deeper. We'll break down exactly how to think, move and build like the cunning, without losing your humanity, because the difference between the rich and the rest isn't intelligence. It's understanding that the game doesn't reward truth. It rewards those who play it with their eyes open. You've spent most of your life waiting for fairness. You believed that if you worked harder, stayed honest, and kept your integrity intact, life would eventually recognize you. But it hasn't, has it? You've watched others, louder, bolder, sometimes empty, leap past you as if the world itself were rigged in their favor. And the truth is, it is. It always has been, because the game isn't about justice, it's about leverage, and Machiavelli understood leverage better than anyone who ever wrote about power. He would tell you that those dumber people who are getting rich didn't outsmart you intellectually, they outmaneuvered you psychologically. They understand one thing you still resist, that the crowd is guided not by truth, but by emotion. Logic convinces no one. Certainty does. And in the modern marketplace, the calmest liar earns more than the anxious genius. You've been taught to despise manipulation, but you live in a world built on it. Every headline, every product launch, every politician's smile, all are crafted illusions designed to move attention, not reveal reality. The sooner you understand that, the freer you become. Because the moment you see manipulation, you stop being its victim. And when you learn to use it with precision, never to exploit, but to guide, you begin to shift from pawn to player. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must appear virtuous, even when virtue doesn't serve him. He must look generous, while keeping his gold untouched. He must look merciful, even while wielding discipline. And he must always protect his image, because appearance governs loyalty more than truth ever can. The modern rich have mastered this art. They craft their perception like armor, calculated, aesthetic, bulletproof. They know exactly when to show, when to vanish, when to speak, and when to let others imagine. Meanwhile, you overshare your plans, hoping honesty will bring you allies. But the more you reveal, the easier you are to predict. And predictability kills power. This is your turning point. You must learn to design perception as deliberately as they do, not through deceit, through orchestration. Think of your public self as a brand. Every word you speak, every gesture you make, every photo you post, it's either a signal of strength or an admission of uncertainty. You must start communicating in symbols. Show less of what you are doing and more of what you stand for. Wealth begins the moment people start associating your name with gravity, stability, inevitability. Those who seem inevitable attract opportunity. Those who seem available invite exploitation. You will have to kill one part of yourself to do this, the part that wants to be liked. The need for approval is poverty's oldest chain. You don't have to be cruel, but you must be willing to be misunderstood. Let them call you cold. Let them call you arrogant. Machiavelli warned, it is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Fear, in his language, didn't mean terror. It meant respect. It meant being unshakable enough that others hesitate before wasting your time, lying to your face, or asking you to diminish your worth. And if you want to build wealth, you must create that hesitation in others. It's not cruelty. It's command. To move through the modern world, you'll need to master 3 silent weapons. The first is selective presence. The poor seek attention, the rich seek control. Every appearance, every word, every interaction must have purpose. When you speak, it should echo. When you act, it should ripple. Stop trying to be everywhere. Start becoming rare. Scarcity breeds value in products, in art, and in people. If you are always accessible, your worth diminishes. Absence creates intrigue. Presence confirms power. Disappear strategically, and when you return with force. The second is emotional detachment. Money doesn't flow to those who feel deeply. It flows to those who decide clearly. The market rewards composure. While others panic, you observe. While they argue, you listen. While they chase, you position. Detach from outcomes long enough to see the moves no one else can. Because the moment you stop needing, you start attracting. And when your emotions no longer control you, you begin to control everything else. The third is framing. The rich don't sell facts. They sell frames. A frame turns a weakness into a strategy. It turns luck into design, mistakes into learning, and arrogance into leadership. When you control the frame, even failure becomes profit. You must learn to narrate your story before someone else does. Because silence without framing is mystery, but silence misinterpreted is danger. Frame your silence as mastery, not absence. Let them believe that every move you make is intentional, even when it's improvisation. That illusion alone can triple your influence, but none of this will matter if you don't change how you interpret wealth itself. You still see money as the reward for effort. It's not. It's the reward for alignment. Effort without alignment creates exhaustion. Effort with alignment creates empire. Those dumber people simply aligned faster. They stopped waiting for permission. They built momentum through bold imperfection. You, however, wait for readiness, a feeling that never comes. You confuse preparation with procrastination, and every day you wait, someone else moves. Machiavelli taught that fortune favors the bold, not the reckless, the bold. He said that fortune is a woman, and like all forces of chaos, she rewards aggression, not violence, assertion. He observed that the cautious rarely seize opportunity because they overanalyze while others act. If you want wealth, you must act before you're comfortable, because the comfort you seek is the illusion that someone smarter will eventually notice you. No one's coming, not the company, not the algorithm, not destiny. The world doesn't reward potential, it rewards proof of audacity. So act, pitch, ask, invest, risk small, but risk often. The cautious stay safe, and safety pays minimum wage. The strategic take controlled leaps, and control pays compound interest. But here's where you must be ruthless with yourself. Stop mistaking moral purity for strategic paralysis. You can be ethical and still calculated. You can be kind and still untouchable. Machiavelli never glorified cruelty. He glorified clarity. He believed that the leader's responsibility was to protect his power so he could protect his people. You are both the ruler and the ruled in your own life. If you don't defend your power, you will lose your peace. And when you lose your peace, your morality collapses with it. You have to start thinking like an architect of wealth, not a worker for it. Workers focus on tasks. Architects focus on systems. The rich think in terms of leverage. How can I multiply this one action into 10 outcomes? You think in terms of effort. How can I do this perfectly? Perfection exhausts. Leverage liberates. Every decision you make must now ask one question. Will this make me replaceable or untouchable? If it makes you replaceable, automate it, delegate it, or abandon it. If it makes you untouchable, double down until you dominate. And here's another uncomfortable truth. Most people aren't rich because they secretly despise the rich. They've internalized resentment so deeply that wealth feels like betrayal. They equate money with arrogance, success with corruption, and so their subconscious protects them from the wealth they claim to desire. You can't attract what you secretly condemn. Machiavelli would call this the moral trap of the masses. He'd remind you that envy is the emotion of those who admire power but refuse to learn from it. You must unlearn that resentment, not to worship the rich, but to study their architecture. Because the only way to beat the game is to understand its rules without hating the players. Think of wealth as a fortress. If you build it without walls, you'll be robbed. If you build it without gates, you'll be invaded. If you build it without guards, you'll be exhausted. You must design your systems to protect your mind first, because every financial loss begins as an emotional one. Guard your focus as if it were gold. Guard your energy as if it were equity. And never let guilt convince you that self-protection is selfish. The new world doesn't reward the loudest voice. It rewards the most disciplined mind. If you can remain calm while others drown in distraction, you'll own their attention. If you can think clearly when others rage emotionally, you'll own their decisions. And once you own attention and decisions, money follows like a shadow. That's the Machiavellian formula: control perception, master emotion, execute decisively. But let's take this beyond theory. Here's how you turn strategy into wealth, one habit at a time. First, schedule silence. Not the spiritual kind, the strategic kind. Take 1 hour every morning where you plan without emotion. List your assets, your connections, your leverage points. Ask yourself, what can I control today that multiplies tomorrow? If the answer is nothing, you're still thinking like a worker. Find leverage, or you will forever rent your time to those who did. Second, practice ruthless clarity. Every week, eliminate one distraction pretending to be an obligation. Meetings, gossip, emotional drama. These are taxes on your potential. Cut them quietly. Power doesn't announce its priorities, it enforces them. Third, engineer visibility strategically. Show up only where attention converts to opportunity. Never explain, never justify. The more you explain, the cheaper your presence becomes. Let your results speak so loudly that words become redundant, that silence is your luxury now. Finally, create psychological distance from your income. Never let your earnings define your identity. Machiavelli warned that a prince who depends on fortune will fall with it. You must depend on structure. Invest in systems that outlive your mood, automation, teams, knowledge. Money is temporary. Mastery isn't. The moment you separate your self-worth from your net worth, you become untouchable. And when that happens, something incredible unfolds. You stop comparing. You stop caring who's dumber or smarter, richer or poorer. You stop watching others because you've built an ecosystem that works in silence. You no longer need validation because your results speak through time. This is what Machiavelli meant by power, not domination, but self-command. To own your reactions, your time, your attention, that is wealth. Now you know why people dumber than you are getting rich. They learned to play while you were still asking for the rules. They acted while you were still perfecting the theory. They mastered attention while you mastered detail. But their advantage ends here, because now you see the game. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The next move is yours. Will you keep waiting for fairness, or start building leverage? Will you keep explaining your worth, or make silence your proof? Will you keep admiring wealth, or finally design your own? Tell me in the comments, are you ready to play the game with your eyes open? Subscribe for the next episode where we go deeper into Machiavelli's hidden laws of wealth, power, and perception. Until then, stay quiet, stay calculating, and never again mistake intelligence for strategy, because intelligence builds the weapon, strategy pulls the trigger.